There is a 4-second moment in Season 5, Episode 14 of Adventure Time where Simon Petrikov, a man who has not been himself in over 1,000 years, sings the theme song from Cheers to keep his own mind from disappearing. He is holding a child he barely knows. He is wearing a crown that is eating him alive. And he chooses a sitcom jingle as his last line of defense against madness. The show does not explain this. It simply lets it happen, and if you were not paying attention, you missed one of the most human moments in the entire series. That is the kind of show Adventure Time is. Not the one you remember from the surface, the one underneath. And tonight, you are going to hear about the version of the show that most people never found. The facts buried in the backgrounds, the details hidden in the animation, the lore that the creators tucked into corners where only the most careful viewers would ever look. This is not a recap. This is not a summary. This is the show behind the show, and it runs deeper than you think. If you enjoy long-form sleep essays like this, subscribing helps the channel keep going. It is free and takes about 3 seconds. Now, back to it. The story of Adventure Time begins before the story of Adventure Time. In 2006, a young animator named Pendleton Ward was working at Frederator Studios, a production company that was accepting pitches for short cartoons from anyone willing to submit. No agent required, no industry connections needed. Ward, fresh out of Cal Arts, put together a storyboard that he later admitted he did not fully understand how to format. He drew it straight ahead panel by panel, guessing at what a professional storyboard was supposed to look like. He submitted it, and Frederator picked it up for their Random Cartoons anthology. That 7-minute short, uploaded to the internet in late 2008, became one of the most viral animated clips of its era and landed Ward a series order from Cartoon Network. The pilot was rough, strange, and tonally unlike anything else on the network. It was also, in its own accidental way, perfect. What most people do not know is that Ward's approach to making the show was shaped almost entirely by his time on another Cartoon Network series. Before Adventure Time existed as a full show, Ward worked as a writer and storyboard artist on The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack. That show was storyboard-driven, meaning the storyboard artists did not just illustrate scripts handed to them by writers. They wrote the episodes themselves in visual form, building the jokes and the pacing and the emotional beats directly into the boards. Ward loved this process so much that when Adventure Time was greenlit, he insisted on running it the same way. Every episode of Adventure Time was storyboard-driven from the very beginning, which is why the show has that particular looseness to it, that feeling of discovery in every scene, as though the story is finding itself in real time. The writing room reflected this philosophy. Ward and his team would play what they called writers' games. Everyone in the room was given 2 minutes to draw a picture, and then the person sitting next to them had 2 minutes to write the first act of a story based on that picture. Ideas were not pitched in the traditional sense. They were stumbled upon, grown from accidents and impulses, and the kind of creative play that most studios would never allow. Ward himself said that the goal was always to make each other laugh first, and to worry about structure second. That sensibility is baked into the DNA of every episode, and it is the reason the show can shift from slapstick comedy to genuine existential dread within the span of a single scene, without ever feeling like it has lost its footing. But the accidents that shaped Adventure Time go deeper than the writing process. The theme song you hear at the beginning of every episode is, technically, an outtake. Ward recorded a rough version of the song as a temporary placeholder and sent it to Cartoon Network for approval, fully expecting to re-record a polished version later. But when he listened back, he decided the rough take had something the clean version would not. There is a moment at the very beginning of the recording, before Ward starts singing, where you can hear someone typing on a keyboard in the background. That sound is still there, in every single episode, over 280 of them. The imperfection became the identity. And then there is the matter of Lumpy Space Princess. Ward voices the character himself, and the voice was never planned. He adopted a Valley Girl accent during a recording session, pitching his voice higher and delivering the lines in a way that was half sincere and half absurd. The performance worked so well that it stuck, and for the entire run of the series, the creator of one of the most beloved animated shows of the 21st century also played one of its most iconic characters. Ward has said that the voice was his way of masking genuine emotion behind exaggerated delivery, which, if you think about it, is a perfect description of the show itself. The production timeline of Adventure Time is something that rarely gets discussed, but it explains a great deal about why the show feels the way it does. Each episode took approximately 9 months to produce, from initial concept to final broadcast. That is nearly as long as a feature film spends in active production, compressed into an 11-minute cartoon. The reason for this extended timeline was partly logistical, as the show outsourced its animation to studios in South Korea. but it was also philosophical. Ward wanted every episode to feel considered. He wanted the backgrounds to reward close inspection, the character movements to carry emotional weight, and the world to accumulate detail over time in a way that made Ooo feel like a real place with a real history. That history, of course, is the Mushroom War. And this is where the hidden facts of Adventure Time begin to stack on top of each other in ways that most casual viewers never notice. The Mushroom War is the nuclear conflict that destroyed human civilization roughly 1,000 years before the events of the show. The name itself is a reference to the mushroom clouds produced by nuclear detonations, and the evidence of this war is scattered throughout the series in background details that the show never directly explains. Rusted cars half buried in the earth, crumbling highway overpasses visible behind hills, the remains of a television set in the corner of a cave. These are not set dressing. They are the bones of the world that came before Ooo, and the artists placed them deliberately, knowing that some viewers would see them and some would not. One of the most striking examples appears in Season 8, Episode 17, an episode called High Strangeness. There is a scene in which a world population chart is visible in the background. If you pause the frame and look closely, the chart shows the catastrophic decline in Earth's human population caused by the Mushroom War. The drop is nearly vertical, a line falling off a cliff. But there is another detail on that same chart that almost nobody talks about. There is a smaller dip in the population line around the 1300s, corresponding to the Black Plague. The animators included a historically accurate reference to a medieval pandemic on a background prop in a cartoon about a boy and his magical dog. That is the level of care that went into this show. The timeline of the Mushroom War itself is more specific than most people realize. Marceline the Vampire Queen is exactly 1,000 years old at the start of the series. Simon Petrikov, the man who would become the Ice King, is exactly 1,040. These numbers are not approximations. They are derived from a time card shown in the episode Simon and Marcy, Season 5, Episode 14, which states that the events of that flashback took place 996 years before the present. In that flashback, Marceline is 7 years old and Simon is 47. The math places the Mushroom War in the early 21st century, which aligns with the remnants of modern technology visible throughout the land of Ooo. Simon and Marcy is one of the most emotionally devastating episodes in the entire series, and it contains layers of hidden detail that deepen its impact the more you know about them. The episode shows Simon caring for young Marceline in the immediate aftermath of the Mushroom War. The landscape is a wasteland of ruined buildings and mutated creatures, and Simon is wearing the crown that is slowly erasing his identity. To fight the crown's influence and maintain his grip on reality, he sings the theme song from Cheers, the 1980s sitcom. The choice is not random. Cheers aired from 1982 to 1993, which places it squarely in Simon's era. It is a song about a place where everybody knows your name, sung by a man who is losing the ability to remember his own. The show does not underline this. It does not pause to explain the irony. It trusts you to feel it. But the hidden details in that episode go further. At one point, Simon calls Marceline by the name Gunter. This is the name he will later use for his penguin companion when he has fully become the Ice King. The first time he says it, the crown is on his head. But later in the same episode, he says it again with the crown off. This is the show telling you, without any dialogue or exposition, that Simon has already fallen deeper into his transformation than he realizes. The crown is no longer just influencing him when he wears it. It has begun to change who he is at a fundamental level, and Marceline, who is 7 years old, does not understand what is happening. The tragedy of their separation is one of the best-known emotional beats in Adventure Time, but the specifics contain details that are easy to miss. When Simon accidentally freezes Marceline's tears and cuts her face, he flees on a sled, unable to control his powers and terrified of hurting her further. But before he disappears, he does something that the show reveals only later. He summons Marceline's father, Hunson Abadir, the ruler of the Nightosphere, to watch over her in his absence. Simon, a man losing his mind, had the presence of thought to arrange for Marceline's care before he vanished from her life. That act of love is never discussed in the episode itself. It is pieced together across multiple episodes spanning several seasons. You have to be paying attention across years of the show to catch it. Marceline's 1,000 years of isolation between Simon's departure and the events of the series are only hinted at, but those hints are devastating if you know where to look. In the episode What Was Missing, Season 3, Episode 10, there is a moment where Jake breaks his violin in half during a confrontation. It seems like a throwaway gag, but from that point forward, for the rest of the entire series, Jake's violin appears with duct tape holding it together. The animators never reset it. They never forgot. The broken violin stays broken, repaired, but visibly damaged, for over 100 episodes. That level of continuity is almost unheard of in episodic animation. And in that same episode, Marceline sings a song to Princess Bubblegum that contains one of the most carefully hidden emotional revelations in the show's run. The song is about a relationship that ended, about missing someone who moved on, about the pain of caring more than the other person seems to. At the time the episode aired, in 2011, the nature of Marceline and Bubblegum's relationship was something the show could only gesture at. Cartoon Network was not ready for an explicitly queer relationship between two lead characters on a children's show. So, the writers hid it in the music. They hid it in a concert scene where Marceline performs and young Bubblegum catches her shirt when she throws it into the crowd. That shirt, a red and white striped garment, appears on Bubblegum throughout the series. She wears it to sleep. She wears it when she is alone. And in later episodes, she is shown smelling it, as though trying to hold on to a memory. The shirt is never explained. It is never discussed. It is simply there, carrying the weight of a love story that the show could not yet tell out loud. The shirt detail connects to a larger pattern in Adventure Time, which is the show's habit of hiding its most important emotional truths in objects. Hambo, the stuffed bear that Simon gives to young Marceline, appears throughout the series as a symbol of their bond. When Marceline loses Hambo, it is treated as a genuine loss, not a comedic inconvenience. The bear carries the memory of a relationship that one of them can no longer remember. And when Hambo is eventually returned to Marceline in the episode Sky Witch, Season 5, Episode 29, the emotional payoff works because the show has spent years establishing what that object means without ever delivering a speech about it. This philosophy extends to the world building in ways that are easy to underestimate. The Land of Ooo is not just a colorful cartoon setting. It is a post-apocalyptic landscape rendered in candy colors, and the evidence of its true nature is everywhere if you know how to read it. The Candy Kingdom, ruled by Princess Bubblegum, is built on the ruins of human civilization. Bubblegum herself is not a person in any traditional sense. She is a sentient mass of bubblegum that gained consciousness and gradually built an entire society from scratch. The Candy People, her subjects, are her creations. She made them. And this fact, which the show treats as background information, has implications that grow darker the longer you think about them. Princess Bubblegum is, by any reasonable measure, a dictator. She created her people, she governs them absolutely. And as the series progresses, she begins to surveil them. Following a near-fatal encounter with the Lich in the second season, Bubblegum starts installing cameras throughout the Candy Kingdom. She implants tracking chips in every citizen. She develops contingency plans for threats that have not yet materialized. In Season 6, Tree Trunks, one of the show's most innocent characters, directly calls Bubblegum a fascist. The show does not treat this as a joke. It lets the accusation land and then moves on, leaving you to sit with the discomfort of knowing that the most scientifically brilliant and ostensibly benevolent ruler in Ooo is also its most controlling. The episode The Cooler, Season 6, Episode 22, pushes this even further. Bubblegum is revealed to have been undermining the Flame Kingdom, another sovereign nation, in order to neutralize a perceived threat. When confronted about her actions, she dismantles her surveillance apparatus. But the damage to her character has already been done. The show has shown you who she is when she is afraid, and it is not comforting. And the fact that she later loses her throne in an election, only to realize that she has deliberately kept her people too unintelligent to govern themselves, is one of the most quietly devastating character beats in the entire series. She built a kingdom of children and then wondered why they could not take care of themselves. The creation of the Candy People also raises questions that the show never fully answers, but clearly wants you to think about. Lemongrab, one of Bubblegum's earliest creations, is a failed experiment. He is sentient, emotional, and deeply unstable, and his existence is treated as a mistake that Bubblegum is responsible for, but cannot fix. Lemongrab screams. He punishes. He cannot understand why the world does not make sense to him. And the show invites you to wonder whether his suffering is his fault or hers. She made him, she gave him consciousness without giving him the tools to cope with it. And when he proves too difficult to manage, she builds him a companion, Lemongrab 2, which only creates new problems. The Lemongrab arc, spread across multiple seasons, is one of the most unsettling storylines in children's animation, and it is entirely about the ethics of creation. But if Bubblegum's hidden darkness is a slow reveal, the truth about Jake the dog is a single, staggering moment of disclosure. For most of the series, Jake believes his stretching powers come from rolling around in a magical mud puddle as a puppy. It is a silly origin story for a silly power, and the show lets you believe it for years. Then, in the episode Joshua and Margaret Investigations, and later in Jake the Star Child, Season 10, Episode 10, the truth comes out. Jake was not born in the conventional sense. His father Joshua was bitten by an extra-dimensional shape-shifting alien named Warren Ampersand during a detective investigation. The bite caused a large boil to form on Joshua's head, and Jake emerged from that boil. Joshua is, biologically speaking, Jake's mother. Margaret, the dog who raised him, is his adoptive mother, and Warren Ampersand, the alien who infected Joshua, is Jake's biological father. The implications of this are staggering, and the show knows it. Warren Ampersand did not create Jake out of love. He created Jake and many other offspring before him in order to eventually absorb their powers and kill them. Warren explicitly states that Jake is the only child he felt guilty about draining. Every other offspring was consumed without remorse. Jake's existence is the result of a parasitic reproductive strategy employed by an alien predator, and his powers, the abilities that define him as a character, are the very thing his biological father wants to harvest from him. The show delivers this information in a single episode and then, remarkably, does not dwell on it. Jake processes the revelation, confronts Warren, throws him into a black hole, and moves on. But the fact remains, buried in the lore like everything else in this show, waiting for you to think about it at 3 in the morning. And then there is the matter of BMO. BMO is a living video game console who lives with Finn and Jake, and BMO is one of the most philosophically complex characters in the entire series, despite appearing on the surface to be comic relief. The most frequently cited hidden detail about BMO involves gender. BMO has no fixed gender identity. Throughout the series, different characters refer to BMO using different pronouns. BMO uses different pronouns for itself depending on the situation. In the gender-swapped episodes featuring Fiona and Cake, where every character is presented as their opposite gender counterpart, BMO remains exactly the same. BMO is the only character in the show who does not change in the gender-swapped universe, because BMO's identity is not tied to gender at all. The show never explains this. It never delivers a speech about it. It simply presents BMO as BMO, and lets you draw your own conclusions. Inside BMO's body, there is a gold heart with a face on it, a small medal, and a diploma. These are references to the gifts given to the Tin Man, the Cowardly Lion, and the Scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz. The heart represents compassion, the medal represents courage, the diploma represents wisdom. BMO, a machine built by a human inventor named Mo in a factory called MO Co., carries inside itself the symbols of everything that makes a person human. And BMO never mentions it. The detail exists only for those who look. Mo himself is another layer of hidden lore. He is the creator of BMO and all the other MO robots, and his factory, Missouri Co., appears in the episode Be More, Season 5, Episode 28. In that episode, it is revealed that Mo built BMO specifically to take care of his son, but Mo never had a son. He built BMO to fulfill a purpose that would never be needed, and BMO spent an unknown amount of time alone in the factory before eventually finding Finn and Jake. The loneliness of that detail is something the show presents without commentary. Mo gave BMO the capacity to love and then left BMO with no one to love. And on Mo's desk in the factory, there are blueprints for a Mars colony suggesting that Mo's ambitions extended far beyond Earth. Those blueprints are never mentioned. They are just there, in the background, part of a story that was never told. The cosmic mythology of Adventure Time is where the hidden facts become almost overwhelming in their density. The show builds a hierarchy of cosmic entities that spans billions of years, and most of it is communicated through implications rather than exposition. At the top of this hierarchy is Golb, a being of pure chaos and disorder, who exists in a dimension outside of normal reality. Golb first appears in the episode Puhoy, Season 5, Episode 16, during a brief sequence that most viewers dismissed as a dream. Finn, having lived an entire lifetime in an alternate dimension called Pillow World, dies of old age and his spirit flies through space. On the way back to his body, he bounces off the tongue of an enormous red creature with 4 eyes. That creature is Golb. The show does not name it. It does not explain it. It shows you a glimpse of something vast and moves on, trusting that the image will lodge in your memory and accumulate meaning over the episodes to come. Golb does not return until the series finale Come Along With Me, which aired on September 3, 2018. In that episode, Betty Groff, Simon Petrikov's fiancée who traveled forward in time to save him, merges with Golb in an act of self-sacrifice. The fusion creates a new entity, sometimes called Golb-Betty, and the implication is that Betty's love and Golb's chaos have combined into something that is neither fully one nor the other. The moment is presented not as a victory, but as a transformation. And the show ends without telling you what that transformation means. It lets you carry the question with you. Between Golb at the top and the mortal characters at the bottom, there is Prismo, the Wishmaster. Prismo lives in the Time Room, which exists at the center of the multiverse. He is a two-dimensional shadow cast on the wall of the Time Room by a sleeping old man. When the old man wakes up, Prismo ceases to exist. When the old man falls back asleep, Prismo returns. This is a direct reference to H.P. Lovecraft's Azathoth, the blind idiot god who dreams the universe into existence. Prismo's nature is one of the most elegant pieces of world building in the series. He is omnipotent within the Time Room, but existentially dependent on the unconscious state of a mortal being. He can grant any wish, but every wish has a twist because the act of wishing changes the timeline in unpredictable ways. And the Time Room itself produces time waves that are experienced by other dimensions, meaning that the passage of time across the multiverse is, in some sense, a byproduct of one old man dreaming. The connection between Prismo and the later series Adventure Time Fiona and Cake, which premiered on August 31st, 2023, adds another layer to this lore. It was revealed that Prismo, who spends eternity granting wishes and building dimensions for others, eventually decided to build one for himself. That unauthorized universe, hidden inside Ice King's mind, became the Fiona and Cake reality. The gender-swapped world that fans had assumed was a simple creative exercise turned out to be the secret project of a cosmic entity who was lonely. Prismo, the most powerful wish granter in the multiverse, wanted something that no wish could provide. He wanted a world that was his. And then there are the Catalyst Comets, which tie the cosmic mythology directly to the characters you know. The Catalyst Comets are recurring celestial events that carry embodiments of fundamental forces. One comet carried the embodiment of pure evil, which became the Lich. Another carried the embodiment of good, which became Finn. This is revealed in the episode The Comet, Season 6, Episode 43, when the Purple Comet itself explains the cycle to Finn. The comets have been arriving on Earth for billions of years, each one bringing change. The dinosaurs were wiped out by a Catalyst Comet. The Lich was born from one. Finn's soul rode one down from the cosmos. And the cycle continues endlessly, with creation and destruction arriving on the same trajectory. The Evergreen episode, Season 6, Episode 24, takes this mythology back 65 million years and reveals the origin of the Ice King's crown. An ice wizard named Evergreen, one of the 4 original elementals, attempted to stop the approaching comet by creating a magical crown that would grant its wearer their deepest desire. Evergreen's plan was to wish the comet away, but when the moment came, Evergreen was incapacitated, and the crown was put on by his assistant, a small dinosaur also named Gunther. Gunther's deepest desire was not to save the world, it was to be like his master. The crown turned Gunther into a crude imitation of Evergreen, and the comet struck the Earth, killing the dinosaurs. The crown survived. It passed through thousands of years of history, from owner to owner, always driving them mad, always turning them into an imitation of that original ice wizard. When Simon Petrikov found it in the modern era, the crown did what it had always done. It turned him into a version of Evergreen, filtered through Gunther's childlike desire. The Ice King is not just a man who lost his mind. He is the latest iteration of a pattern that has been repeating for 65 million years. And here is the detail that ties it all together. The name Gunther. Simon calls his penguin Gunther. He calls Marceline Gunther when the crown takes hold. Every penguin he keeps is named Gunther. He does not know why. The crown knows. It remembers the original Gunther, the small dinosaur who put it on and wished to be his master. Every time Simon says the name, he is echoing an event that happened before the age of mammals. The show never explains this in a single speech. It scatters the pieces across seasons and lets you assemble them yourself. Finn's past lives add yet another dimension to this layered mythology. In the episode The Vault, Season 5, Episode 34, Finn discovers that he has lived before. His previous incarnations include a comet, a butterfly, a blob from a higher dimension, and a green-skinned woman named Shoko. Shoko lived during the early days of the Candy Kingdom and died falling into a river of toxic sludge while attempting to steal an amulet from Princess Bubblegum. Her body, still clutching the amulet, was buried beneath what would eventually become the tree fort where Finn and Jake live. Finn has been living on top of his own grave for the entire series and did not know it until that episode. The metaphysical detail embedded in that episode is the concept of the vault itself. Finn's past lives are stored in what he calls his vault, a mental space where he locks away memories and experiences that are too painful or too strange to process. When he finally opens the vault and confronts Shoko's memories, the sound effect used is a metal door creaking open. That sound effect was chosen deliberately. The vault is not a metaphor. Within the logic of the show, it is a real psychic structure, a place inside Finn's mind where the weight of multiple lifetimes is stored. And the suggestion is that everyone in the show has a vault. Everyone is carrying memories they have locked away. There is a recurring detail across all of Finn's incarnations and alternate versions that the show never explicitly addresses but clearly wants you to notice. In every version of Finn across every timeline and every alternate reality, he eventually loses his right arm. The main timeline, Finn loses his arm in Escape from the Citadel, Season 6, Episode 2, when it is torn off by the Grass Sword's reaction to his father's escape. The arm grows back through magical means in the episode Breezy, but the pattern persists. Farmworld Finn loses an arm. Pillow World Finn loses an arm. Shoko, his past life, was missing an arm. The show establishes this as a cosmic constant without ever telling you what it means. It is a recurring wound that follows Finn across every possible version of his existence. And the implication is that some things are fated. Some losses cannot be avoided, no matter how many lives you live. The Grass Sword itself has a hidden trajectory that spans multiple seasons and culminates in the creation of one of the show's most tragic characters. The sword first appears in Season 5, Episode 45, Blade of Grass. It bonds with Finn's arm and cannot be removed. When Finn loses his arm in Season 6, the Grass Sword goes with it. When his arm regenerates, a small green thorn remains embedded in his palm, a remnant of the Grass Sword hiding beneath his skin. The thorn is visible in multiple episodes, but is easy to miss. In the episode Reboot, Season 8, Episode 27, the Grass Sword detaches from Finn's arm and fuses with the Finn Sword. A magical duplicate of Finn created in the episode Is That You? Season 6, Episode 19. The fusion produces Fern, a grass version of Finn who contains all of Finn's memories, but none of his stability. Fern is, in a sense, the part of Finn that he locked in the vault. He is Finn's shadow, his loss, his grief-given form, and Fern's eventual destruction is one of the most quietly heartbreaking moments in the series, because losing Fern means Finn loses the part of himself that he never learned how to carry. The four elementals are another thread of hidden lore that runs through the entire series. Long before the events of the show, there were four elemental forces embodied in four beings: ice, fire, candy, and slime. These elements have been reincarnated across the ages, always maintaining a balance. In the current era of the show, the four elementals are the Ice King, who inherited the Ice Elemental's power through the crown, Flame Princess, who was born as the Fire Elemental, Princess Bubblegum, who is the Candy Elemental, and Slime Princess, who is the Slime Elemental. The miniseries Elements, which aired as part of Season 9, explores what happens when this balance is disrupted, and the results are some of the most visually striking and thematically ambitious episodes in the show's run. Flame Princess's hidden backstory is one of the darker corners of Adventure Time's lore. When she was born, she was immediately recognized as the new Fire Elemental, a being of such raw power that she was more dangerous than her own father, the Flame King. Bubblegum, concerned about the potential for a catastrophe, recommended that the Flame King imprison his own daughter in a power-dampening lantern. He did. Flame Princess spent the first 14 years of her life inside a lamp, never touching the world, never being touched by it. The show reveals this information gradually, and the full picture of what Bubblegum did, ordering the imprisonment of a newborn because she feared what that child might become, is one of the most morally complex decisions any character in the show makes. Bubblegum was right that Flame Princess was dangerous. When Flame Princess experiences extreme emotion, her elemental matrix becomes unstable, and she can burn hot enough to melt through the Earth's crust. But being right does not make the decision less cruel, and the show knows it. There is a hidden detail about the Flame Princess that most viewers have never caught. In the Elements miniseries, when the elemental balance is disrupted, Flame Princess transforms into a dragon, and her fire turns blue. She becomes capable of converting other beings into fire elemental creatures against their will, turning them violent and unstable. The blue fire is significant because blue flames are hotter than orange or yellow flames. The show is telling you, through a color change that lasts only a few episodes, that Flame Princess's true power is orders of magnitude greater than what she normally displays. She has been holding back for the entire series. The lamp that imprisoned her as a child was not just containing her, it was saving the world from what she could become. The hidden snail is perhaps the most famous running detail in Adventure Time, and even it has layers that most people do not know about. A small waving snail appears in every single episode of the series, hidden somewhere in the background. The snail began as an inside joke among the background artists. Someone drew it once, and the rest of the team started adding it to their own scenes as a game. Eventually, it became official policy: every episode must contain the snail. But the snail is not just a static Easter egg. In Season 3, the Lich possesses the snail, and from that point forward, the snail's appearances take on a darker meaning. You can track the Lich's influence across the series by watching where the snail appears and what it is doing. In some episodes, the snail's eyes glow green, indicating possession. In others, the snail appears normal, suggesting the Lich's grip has loosened. The show turned a background gag into a narrative tracking device, and unless you were watching every frame, you would never know. In Adventure Time: Distant Lands, the 4-part special that premiered in 2020, the snail is absent from the first episode, BMO, for the first time in the show's history. Its shell appears in the background of a scene in the drift, but the snail itself is not there. After over 280 consecutive episodes of appearances, the snail vanished. Whether this was intentional or an oversight has never been confirmed, but given the show's obsessive attention to continuity, the absence feels deliberate. The voice cast of Adventure Time contains hidden connections that most viewers are not aware of. George Takei, best known as Hikaru Sulu from Star Trek, voiced Ricardio the Heart Guy, a character who is literally the Ice King's heart given sentient form. Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker himself, voiced the Fear Feaster, a creature that lives in the bottom of the ocean and preys on fear. Justin Roiland, who would later co-create Rick and Morty, provided the voice for the Earl of Lemongrab. Donald Glover, before his Childish Gambino fame reached its peak, voiced Marshall Lee the Vampire King in the gender-swapped episodes, and Ron Perlman, Hellboy himself, voiced the Lich, the show's most terrifying villain. The Lich's dialogue, delivered in Perlman's bass rumble, carries the weight of a cosmic entity that has existed since before the formation of the Earth. And the casting was not accidental. The creators wanted the Lich to sound like something ancient and inevitable, and Perlman gave them exactly that. The Lich's origin is one of the most carefully constructed pieces of hidden lore in the show. He is not simply a villain who appears and threatens the heroes. He is a cosmic force of extinction that has been part of Earth's history for billions of years. His soul arrived on a catalyst comet, the same type of comet that carries Finn's soul. The comet that brought the Lich is the same one that killed the dinosaurs 65 million years ago, the one that Evergreen tried to stop. When that comet struck the Earth, the Lich's essence was embedded in the planet, waiting. It remained dormant until the Mushroom War, when the detonation of the mutagenic bomb gave it physical form. The Lich is, in the most literal sense, the death of the dinosaurs given a body by nuclear war. He is extinction incarnate, and his green coloration and horn-like protrusions are visual echoes of the comet that carried him. In the episode Finn the Human, Season 5, Episode 1, an alternate timeline is created in which the Lich never existed. In that timeline, the mushroom bomb still falls, but Simon Petrikov, still wearing the crown, freezes the bomb before it detonates. The explosion is stopped, but the ice spreads across the entire Earth, creating a frozen wasteland. Without the Lich, humanity survives. Without the Lich, there is no Land of Oo. Without the Lich, Finn grows up as a normal human boy in a post-apocalyptic frozen world. The show is telling you that the Land of Oo, the colorful candy-coated worlds you love, only exists because the worst thing imaginable happened. The Lich is the price of Oo. You cannot have one without the other. The finale of Adventure Time, Come Along With Me, aired on September 3rd, 2018, and it is dense with hidden details that reward multiple viewings. The opening sequence of the finale shows a future version of Oo, 1,000 years after the events of the series, where the descendants of BMO tell the story of what came before. This framing device mirrors the structure of the show itself, a story about a post-apocalyptic world told by someone who came after. The show ends as it began, with a world built on the ruins of what came before. In the finale, the threat is Golb, summoned by Betty Groff through a ritual involving the Ice King. When Golb arrives, the fabric of reality begins to unravel. Characters who have been enemies for the entire series stand together. Bubblegum and the Candy Kingdom fight alongside the Flame Kingdom. The Ice King, who has been a joke and a nuisance for 10 seasons, becomes the emotional center of the final conflict. And when Betty merges with Golb to save Simon, transforming the god of chaos into something less destructive, the show offers its final thesis. Love does not fix everything, it transforms it. Simon gets his mind back. He remembers who he is. But Betty is gone, absorbed into something beyond human comprehension. The cost of healing is always loss, and the show's last act is to let you feel both at the same time. There is a moment in the finale where BMO sings a song called Time Adventure. The song creates a harmonic force field that weakens Golb, because Golb is vulnerable to harmony. Chaos cannot survive in the presence of genuine, selfless music. This is not a convenient plot device. It is the culmination of a theme that runs through the entire series. Music in Adventure Time is never decorative. Marceline's songs carry emotional truth that the characters cannot speak. Simon's Cheers theme keeps him sane. Ice King's songs are the ravings of a broken mind reaching for something it has lost. And BMO's song in the final episode saves the world not through power, but through the simple act of singing something true. The show's most dangerous villain is defeated by a lullaby, and the show does not apologize for it. The phrase "time is an illusion" appears in Time Adventure, and it connects to a philosophical thread that the show has been pulling since its earliest seasons. Adventure Time is obsessed with the nature of time. Prismo exists outside of it. The Lich predates it. Finn has lived through it multiple times. The land of Ooo is a place where past, present, and future coexist in the form of ruins and relics and recurring cosmic events. The show's position, stated in its final song, is that every moment that has ever existed still exists somewhere. The people you have lost are not gone. The moments you shared with them are still happening, somewhere in some fold of time that you cannot reach, but that is no less real for being unreachable. It is a philosophy built for a show about falling asleep, because it tells you that rest is not an ending. It is a transition. And now consider the hook. Consider Simon Petrikov singing the Cheers theme in the ruins of the world, holding a child who will outlive him by 1,000 years. Consider that the song he chose is about belonging, about being known, about having a name that someone remembers. Consider that he sang it to fight off a curse that was taking his name away. Consider that the crown he wore had been taking names for 65 million years, ever since a small dinosaur named Gunther put it on and wished to be someone he was not. There is a show behind the show. It is in the broken violin that stays broken. It is in the shirt that Bubblegum wears to sleep. It is in the snail that watches from the corner of every frame. It is in the blueprints on Moe's desk and the population chart in the background of an episode nobody remembers. It is in the fact that a man who is losing everything chose to sing about a place where everybody knows your name. But we are not done, not even close, because the hidden facts of Adventure Time extend far beyond the main characters and the cosmic entities. They live in the corners of the world, in the kingdoms and the creatures and the side characters that the show populated with more care than most series give their protagonists. And to understand the full depth of what the creators built, you need to spend time in those corners. The Nightosphere, the dimension ruled by Marceline's father Hunsin Abadir, is one of the most carefully hidden pieces of world building in the series. Hunsin is the Lord of Evil, a title that sounds dramatic but is, within the logic of the show, more like a bureaucratic position. He is not evil in the way the Lich is evil. He is evil the way a landlord is evil. He runs the Nightosphere the way you might run a particularly chaotic office building, with rules that make sense only to him, and punishments that are wildly disproportionate to the offenses. The Nightosphere itself is a dimension that feeds on the souls of the wicked, and Hunsin's role is to keep it functioning. He did not choose this job. He inherited it through the Nightosphere Amulet, a powerful artifact that transforms whoever wears it into a soul-sucking demon. Before the amulet, Hunsin may have been an ordinary person. The show never confirms this, but it also never denies it. And the implication that Marceline's father might have been someone entirely different before he put on the amulet echoes the story of Simon and the Crown in ways that the show lets you discover on your own. Marceline herself carries hidden lore that connects her to the elemental system in ways that most viewers overlook. She is not an elemental, she is a vampire, but she was not always a vampire. In the miniseries Stakes, which aired as episodes of Season 7, Marceline's history as a vampire is explored in detail. Before she was turned, Marceline was a half-demon, half-human girl surviving in the post-apocalyptic wasteland. She became a vampire hunter, tracking down and destroying the remaining vampires in Ooo. But in the process of killing the Vampire King, she was bitten and transformed. The irony is deliberate. Marceline became the thing she was trying to destroy, and she has carried that identity for nearly 1,000 years. The Stakes miniseries is fundamentally about Marceline trying to undo that transformation, to remove the vampirism and return to what she was before. But the process releases the vampires she had absorbed over the centuries, and she has to fight them all over again. In the end, she is rebitten by the Vampire King and becomes a vampire once more. The show's message is not subtle, but it is honest. Some parts of yourself cannot be removed, no matter how much you want them gone. You can fight them, you can try to exorcise them, but they come back because they are part of what makes you who you are. The Stakes miniseries contains a hidden detail about the Vampire King that connects him to the broader cosmic mythology. When the Vampire King is finally defeated, he does not simply die. He transforms into a cloud of vapor and ascends, becoming something less defined and more ambient. His final words suggest that he has achieved a kind of transcendence, moving beyond physical form into a state of pure existence. This mirrors the offer that the Purple Comet makes to Finn in the episode The Comet, where Finn is given the chance to shed his mortal form and become a higher dimensional being. Finn refuses. The Vampire King, in his own way, accepts. The show is drawing a line between characters who choose to remain embodied and characters who choose to dissolve, and it does not judge either choice. It simply presents them and moves on. The Ice Crown's chain of possession is one of the longest hidden threads in the series, and tracing it reveals details that are easy to miss if you're not looking for them. After its creation by Evergreen 65 million years ago, the crown passed through unknown hands for millions of years. By the time it reached Simon Petrikov, it had already driven countless wearers mad. Simon found it at a dockside market in Scandinavia, according to the episode Holly Jolly Secrets, and purchased it from an old dock worker who was eager to be rid of it. The moment Simon put it on, he heard voices. He described them in his video diaries as alien and hostile, telling him things he did not want to hear. His fiancée, Betty, witnessed one of his episodes and was so frightened by what she saw that she left him. Simon's video diaries, which the show presents as VHS tapes that Finn and Jake discover, are some of the most emotionally raw moments in the entire series. They show a man documenting his own decline, aware that he is losing himself, unable to stop it, recording messages for a future self who will not remember making them. The detail that most people miss about the crown is this: the crown does not actually make its wearer evil. It makes its wearer into Gunther. Specifically, it fulfills the deepest desire of its original wearer, the small dinosaur Gunther, which was to be like his master Evergreen. Every person who wears the crown becomes a version of Evergreen, filtered through Gunther's childlike, incomplete understanding of who Evergreen was. Evergreen was cold and powerful and dismissive. The crown makes its wearers cold, powerful, and increasingly detached from reality. The Ice King's obsession with princesses is a distorted echo of Gunther's adoration of Evergreen, who was his master and his father figure. Simon's madness is not random. It follows a pattern established 65 million years ago by a dinosaur who loved someone who did not love him back. The tragedy of the Ice King is not just that a good man lost his mind. It is that his mind was replaced by the longing of a creature that has been dead for 65 million years. Betty Groff's hidden journey through the series is another thread that rewards careful attention. Betty appears briefly in early episodes as a figure in Simon's past, a name on his lips, a woman in a photograph. But in the episode Betty, Season 5, Episode 48, she is pulled forward in time by Simon's wish and arrives in a world she does not recognize. From that point forward, Betty's entire arc is devoted to finding a way to save Simon, to restore his mind without killing him. She studies magic obsessively. She seeks out cosmic forces. She becomes increasingly desperate and increasingly powerful. By the time of the finale, Betty has become one of the most formidable magic users in Ooo, driven entirely by love and grief. Her decision to merge with Golb is not a sacrifice in the traditional sense. It is the logical endpoint of a woman who was willing to become anything, destroy anything, absorb anything, if it meant saving the man she loved. And the cruelty of it is that it works. Simon is saved, his mind returns, but Betty is gone. She got what she wanted and lost everything in the process. And the show presents this as neither victory nor defeat, but simply as what happened. There is a hidden connection between Betty's arc and the story of the Ice Crown that I think deserves attention. Betty's willingness to sacrifice her identity to save someone she loves mirrors Gunther's willingness to give up his sense of self to become like Evergreen. Both characters are defined by devotion to someone who cannot fully reciprocate. Both are transformed by artifacts of immense power, and both lose themselves in the process. The difference is that Betty chose her transformation, while Gunther stumbled into his. But the outcome is the same. Love without limits does not save you, it unmakes you. And Adventure Time, a children's show about a boy and his dog, has the courage to show you that without flinching. The mathematics of the Candy Kingdom contain hidden details that speak to Princess Bubblegum's character in ways that dialogue never does. Bubblegum is approximately 800 years old at the start of the series, which means she has been ruling the Candy Kingdom for the vast majority of its existence. She remembers its founding. She remembers building her first candy citizens. She remembers every mistake she has made, and the show suggests that this is precisely the problem. Bubblegum has been in power so long that she cannot imagine the Candy Kingdom without her. Her surveillance, her control, her insistence on making every decision herself, all of it stems from a being who has been alive for 8 centuries and has watched everything she built nearly crumble multiple times. In the episode Bonnie Bell Bubblegum, Season 10, Episode 4, the show reveals something remarkable. Before the Candy Kingdom, before the Candy People, before any of it, Bubblegum was alone. She emerged from a massive blob of sentient candy substance known as the Mother Gum, and her first act was to create a family. She built her brother, Nettie, and her aunt and uncle, Gumbald, Lolly, and Chicle. And then Gumbald betrayed her. He tried to overthrow her, to claim the kingdom for himself, and in self-defense, Bubblegum transformed him into a simple-minded candy person. erasing his identity. She did the same to Lolly and Chicole. She turned her family into subjects and then, apparently, never told anyone what she had done. This is the origin of the Candy Kingdom. It was not founded out of benevolence. It was founded by a being who was betrayed by the first people she ever loved, and who responded by erasing their identities and starting over. The surveillance, the control, the refusal to trust, all of it traces back to this original wound. Bubblegum built a kingdom because she was afraid of being alone, and she controlled that kingdom because she was afraid of being betrayed again. The Candy People, her subjects, her children, are her way of making sure she will never be abandoned. And the show hides this revelation in the 10th and final season after you have spent years watching Bubblegum and forming your own opinion of her. The hidden fact recontextualizes everything you thought you knew. Gumball's return in the final season is a masterclass in delayed narrative payoff. The character who was mentioned only in passing, transformed into a simple candy person, and forgotten resurfaces with his full memory intact and his desire for revenge undimmed. The final conflict of Adventure Time is not about a cosmic villain or a world-ending threat. It is about a family feud that is 800 years old. The final battle pits Bubblegum's kingdom against Gumball's army, and the resolution comes not through force, but through a shared dream sequence in which both characters confront the truth of their relationship. In the dream, they both see what the other was afraid of. They both see the moment where trust broke, and they both wake up with the possibility of forgiveness. It simply opens the door and lets you decide whether they walk through it. The hidden lore of Marceline and Bubblegum's relationship is one of the most carefully managed long-term storytelling decisions in animated television. The relationship was implied from as early as Season 3 in 2011, through songs, objects, and background details. The creators have stated in interviews that they wanted to make the relationship explicit from the beginning, but were constrained by Cartoon Network standards at the time. The shirt detail, the songs, the lingering looks, all of it was the team's way of telling a love story within the boundaries they were given. When those boundaries shifted, the show responded. In the series finale, Bubblegum and Marceline kiss on screen, making their relationship canon. The moment was years in the making and arrived not as a surprise, but as a confirmation of something the show had been saying all along, just in a language that required you to listen closely. There is a hidden detail in the Distant Land Special Obsidian, which aired on November 19, 2020, that deepens this relationship further. The special reveals that Bubblegum and Marceline had dated in the past and broken up, and that the breakup was caused by Bubblegum's inability to be vulnerable. Marceline wrote a song about it, a song called Woke Up, that we learn was so personal and so painful that it has the power to physically damage the Glass Kingdom's protections. The idea that an emotional truth can have destructive power is pure Adventure Time. The show has always treated feelings as tangible forces, capable of building or destroying worlds. Marceline's song does not just express pain, it shatters glass, and the special's resolution comes when Marceline writes a new version of the song, one that acknowledges the pain but chooses to move forward. The glass rebuilds, the kingdom is saved, and the message is that healing is not about forgetting what hurt you, it is about finding a new way to sing about it. The Lemongrabs occupy one of the strangest and most unsettling corners of Adventure Time's hidden lore. Lemongrab, the first one, was Bubblegum's earliest attempt at creating a sentient candy person, and he was, by her own admission, a failure. He is neurotic, aggressive, incapable of social interaction, and in constant emotional pain. He screams because he does not know any other way to express what he feels. Bubblegum's response to his dysfunction was to build a second Lemongrab, identical to the first, and give them a kingdom to rule together. The idea was that they would balance each other out. Instead, the two Lemongrabs created an entire civilization of lemon people, became tyrannical rulers, and eventually turned on each other. In the episode Too Old, Season 5, Episode 31, Lemongrab 1 is shown to have eaten Lemongrab 2. He consumed his identical twin, his brother, and grew enormous and grotesque as a result. The show plays this for horror, not comedy, and the image of a bloated Lemongrab with his brother's face visible inside his body is one of the most disturbing images in children's animation. The lemon people themselves carry a hidden significance. They are the descendants of failed experiments, creatures made by creatures who were themselves mistakes. The entire Lemon Kingdom is a monument to the consequences of creation without responsibility. Bubblegum made Lemongrab. Lemongrab made the lemon people, and every step in that chain of creation added more suffering to the world. The show does not offer a neat resolution. Lemongrab is eventually reconstructed, the two versions combined into a single being, and the Lemon Kingdom continues to exist. But the underlying question, whether a creator bears responsibility for the suffering of their creations, is never answered. It is left in the air, like everything else in the show, waiting for you to think about it when the room is quiet. The Lich's speech in Season 4, Episode 26, the episode titled The Lich, contains one of the most chilling pieces of dialogue in the entire series. Standing in the ruins of the Candy Kingdom, the Lich looks at Finn and delivers a monologue about the nature of life and death. He speaks about the extinction of species. He speaks about the silence that follows the end of all things. He speaks with a calm, matter-of-fact tone that is more terrifying than any scream. The voice performance by Ron Perlman turns every word into something that feels inevitable, as though the Lich is not threatening Finn, but simply describing what will happen. And the hidden fact about that speech is this: every word of it is technically true. Within the cosmology of Adventure Time, the Lich is not lying. He is the embodiment of a force that has ended worlds before and will end them again. His patience is the patience of geology. He does not need to rush, because time is on his side. It always has been. The Enchiridion, the hero's handbook that Finn discovers in the very first season, is another object whose hidden significance only becomes clear over the course of the series. On the surface, it is a comedic prop, a silly book for a silly hero in a silly world. But the Enchiridion is actually a cosmic artifact of immense power. The gems embedded in its cover are the jewels of every princess in Ooo, and when all the gems are collected and inserted, the book opens a portal to the multiverse. In the episode The Lich uses Finn to collect the final gems and open a portal. The fact that a book called The Hero's Handbook is the key to interdimensional travel and is weaponized by the show's greatest villain is a detail that works on multiple levels. On one level, it is a plot twist. On another, it is a commentary on the nature of heroic narratives, on how the tools heroes collect on their quests can be turned to purposes they never imagined. And there is one gem that does not fit. Lumpy Space Princess's star gem bounces off the Enchiridion when the Lich tries to insert it. It is the only gem that cannot be used. The show never explains why. Lumpy Space Princess exists outside the categories that the Enchiridion recognizes, and that rejection, that inability to be classified, is quietly one of the most important details about her character. Lumpy Space Princess's nature is one of Adventure Time's deepest hidden threads. She is described as being made of irradiated stardust, a phrase that sounds like nonsense until you consider it carefully. Every other princess in Ooo is made of something tangible. Bubblegum is made of candy, Flame Princess is made of fire, Slime Princess is made of slime. Lumpy Space Princess is made of something cosmic, something that predates the elemental categories that define everyone else. She can transform other beings into lumpers by biting them, a power that mirrors vampirism and hints at something primal and ancient about her nature. And in the series finale, it is Lumpy Space Princess who reverses the damage caused by Golb, using her own power to restore the citizens of Ooo to their original forms. She is, in that moment, the most powerful being on the planet, and the show does not make a big deal of it. She does what needs to be done and moves on, because that is who she has always been. The character who seemed the most ridiculous was, all along, the most cosmically significant. The relationship between Finn and Jake is the emotional backbone of the entire series, and it contains hidden details that shift in meaning as the show progresses. In the very first episode, Finn and Jake are presented as brothers who live together in a tree fort. Simple, fun, easy to understand. But as the series reveals more about their respective origins, the simplicity of that relationship becomes something much more complex. Finn is a human, one of the last of his kind adopted by Jake's parents, Joshua and Margaret. Jake is a shape-shifting alien hybrid, born from a parasitic bite, raised as a normal dog. Neither of them knows the full truth about the other for most of the series. And when they learn it, when they discover that their brotherhood is built on secrets and accidents and cosmic coincidences, they do not care. They choose each other. That choice, repeated across 10 seasons and 280 episodes, is the hidden heart of the show. Everything else, the cosmic entities, the ancient curses, the wars, and the magic and the mythology, is scenery. The core of Adventure Time is two people who decided to be family and never wavered. Jake's relationship with Lady Rainicorn is another hidden thread that the show handles with remarkable subtlety. Lady Rainicorn speaks entirely in Korean. This is not a random choice. Lady Rainicorn's dialogue is real Korean performed by voice actress Nikki Yang, and her conversations with Jake are fully written and fully meaningful. English-speaking viewers hear musical nonsense. Korean-speaking viewers hear complete sentences, jokes, emotional confessions, and plot-relevant information. The show never provides subtitles for Lady Rainicorn in the English broadcast. It trusts that the emotional tone will carry across the language barrier. And it does. But for viewers who understand Korean, there is an entire layer of the show that is invisible to everyone else. Lady Rainicorn has opinions, fears, a sense of humor, and a rich inner life that is fully rendered in her dialogue but fully hidden from the majority of the audience. It is one of the boldest creative choices in the show's run, and one of the least discussed. Jake and Lady's children, the pups, grow up almost instantly due to their hybrid Rainicorn dog biology, and this accelerated aging is played for both comedy and quiet sadness. Jake becomes a father, and then within what feels like days, his children are adults. He misses their childhoods. He barely has time to adjust to parenthood before it is over. The show does not dwell on this, but the speed of it mirrors a feeling that many parents describe. The years pass too quickly. You blink and they are grown. Jake handles it with his characteristic easygoing attitude, but there are moments, small moments, where the weight of it shows on his face. Those moments are the hidden emotional core of Jake's character. He is not just the funny one. He is the one who lets things go, not because he does not care, but because holding on too tightly would break him. The Fern arc, which I mentioned earlier, deserves deeper attention because it contains some of the most carefully layered hidden symbolism in the series. Fern is a grass copy of Finn, created when the Finn sword and the grass sword merge. He has all of Finn's memories and all of Finn's desires. But he is not Finn. He is a copy who knows he is a copy, and that knowledge destroys him. Fern's descent into villainy is not about evil. It is about identity. He wants to be Finn so badly that he cannot accept being Fern, and the gap between who he is and who he wants to be becomes a wound that festers. In the finale, Fern dies. His body breaks apart, but from his remains, a new tree grows, and in that tree is a sword, the Finn sword, reborn. Fern is gone, but something of him remains, transformed into something new. The show's final word on Fern is that copies are not lesser versions, they are different versions. And when they end, they leave something behind that the original could never have created alone. There is a hidden detail about the tree fort that ties directly to Fern's story. The tree fort where Finn and Jake live is, according to the lore established in the vault, the tree that grew from the spot where Shoko, Finn's past life, died. Shoko fell into toxic waste near a young sapling. The sapling absorbed the toxins and grew into the massive tree that Finn would one day call home. Fern, who is a plant creature, dies and becomes a new tree that grows from the remains of the old tree fort. The pattern repeats. Death nourishes growth. Loss becomes shelter. And Finn, without ever understanding the full chain of events, has been living inside the consequences of his own past lives for the entire series. The land of Ooo itself has hidden geographic details that reveal the scope of the Mushroom War's destruction. The continent of Ooo is shaped like a massive crater, suggesting that the land itself was physically reshaped by the nuclear detonation. Islands visible in the distance correspond to real-world geographic features, distorted and transformed by 1,000 years of magical mutation. The Islands miniseries, which aired as part of Season 8, reveals that pockets of humanity survived the Mushroom War by fleeing to remote islands and establishing isolated communities. Finn's parents came from one of these island communities. His mother, Minerva, is a virtual consciousness who uploaded herself into a digital network to save her people from a plague. His father, Martin, is a con man who abandoned Finn as an infant, under circumstances that the show presents with remarkable complexity. Martin is not simply a villain or an absent father. He is a man who was once capable of love, but who was damaged so profoundly that running away became his only response to everything. When Finn finally confronts him, Martin does not apologize. He does not change. He offers Finn the chance to ascend with him into a higher dimension. And Finn refuses. The refusal is the point. Finn chooses the world he knows over the promise of transcendence, and the show presents this as the braver choice. The Islands miniseries also contains one of the most poignant hidden details about Finn's character. When Finn discovers his mother Minerva's digital consciousness, he is overjoyed. He has spent his entire life believing he was the only human in Ooo. The discovery that there are others, that his mother is alive in some form, is everything he ever wanted. But Minerva, in her virtual form, cannot leave the island's network. She exists as data, not as a person. Finn can talk to her, but he cannot hug her. He cannot bring her home. The scene where Finn realizes this, where the joy of finding his mother collides with the impossibility of truly having her back, is played with a restraint that makes it devastating. The show does not give Finn a speech. It gives him a silence, and the silence says everything. Patience St. Pim is a character whose hidden significance extends the timeline of Adventure Time further than most viewers expect. Patience is the ice elemental who existed before the Mushroom War. She was not affected by the crown. She was the genuine, original ice elemental, and when she foresaw the coming apocalypse, She froze herself beneath the sea to survive it. She slept for 1,000 years, encased in ice at the bottom of the ocean, waiting for the world to rebuild. When she wakes, she discovers that the elemental cycle has continued without her. New elementals have been born. The world has moved on, and Patience, who sacrificed 1,000 years of her life to preserve herself, finds that preservation was not enough. The world she saved herself for no longer needs her. Her arc is a hidden meditation on the limits of self-preservation. You can survive anything if you are willing to freeze, but when you thaw, the world has changed, and the person you preserved may no longer fit in it. The relationship between death and the afterlife in Adventure Time is another thread of hidden lore that runs through the entire series. Death, voiced by Miguel Ferrer, is a character who appears in multiple episodes and is presented not as a villain, but as a civil servant. He runs the Dead World, a dimension where the deceased go, and his job is bureaucratic rather than malevolent. The Dead World has 50 levels, each corresponding to a different state of being, and the show reveals these levels gradually across its run. In the Distant Lands special Together Again, which aired on May 20th, 2021, Finn and Jake navigate the Dead World together after Jake's death. This special confirms that Jake dies before Finn, a fact that the show had hinted at but never stated, and the emotional core of the special is two brothers reuniting in the afterlife. They fight through the levels of the Dead World not to escape death, but to be together. The show's final statement on mortality is that death is not an ending, it is a place. And the people who matter to you will find you there. Together Again contains a hidden detail that is easy to miss on first viewing. When Finn arrives in the Dead World, he is an old man. He has lived a full life. He has a mechanical right arm, confirming that the pattern of losing that arm extended to his final years. But more importantly, Finn has a tattoo on his arm of Jake's face surrounded by forget-me-not flowers. The flowers are significant. Forget-me-nots are a symbol of remembrance, of refusing to let go of someone you have lost. Finn carried Jake's image on his body for the rest of his life after Jake's death, and the fact that the flowers are forget-me-nots, not roses or lilies or any other flower, is a choice that communicates everything about how Finn handled his grief. He did not move on. He did not forget. He carried the memory on his skin until the day he died, and then he went to find Jake in the place where the dead go. The show's final hidden fact is also its simplest. Adventure Time ran from April 5th, 2010 to September 3rd, 2018. 283 episodes across 10 seasons, 4 Distant Lands specials, 1 spin-off series, over a decade of stories about a boy and his dog in a world built on the ruins of ours. And hidden inside every episode, in the backgrounds and the music and the objects and the silences, is a body of lore so vast that no single viewing could ever contain it all. The show was designed to be rewatched. It was designed to reward patience. It was designed for nights like this one when you are lying in the dark with your eyes closed and your mind open, and the details you missed the first time come floating back to you like something you forgot you knew. The Cheers theme is still playing. Simon is still singing. Marceline is still 7 years old. And somewhere in the background of the frame, there is a snail, waving. But before that snail disappears behind a rock, there is more to uncover, because the hidden facts of Adventure Time do not end with the characters you know. They extend into the fabric of the show itself, into the decisions made in recording studios and editing bays, and late-night writing sessions that shaped what you saw on screen, without you ever knowing it. The voice recording process for Adventure Time was unusual by industry standards, and this hidden production detail explains a great deal about why the show's dialogue feels so naturalistic. Most animated series record their voice actors separately. Each performer goes into a booth alone, reads their lines, and the audio is edited together afterward. Adventure Time did the opposite whenever possible. Pendleton Ward insisted on getting the entire cast together in the same room to record. Jeremy Shada, who voiced Finn, and John DiMaggio, who voiced Jake, would perform their scenes facing each other, reacting in real time, interrupting each other's, laughing at each other's line reads. The result is a dynamic that you can hear, but might not consciously register. The conversations between Finn and Jake do not sound scripted. They sound like two people who genuinely enjoy each other's company, because the actors genuinely did. That energy is baked into every episode, and it is one of the reasons the show's emotional beats land so hard. When Finn is scared, you can hear Jake's actor responding with real concern. When Jake makes a joke, Finn's laughter is not performed, it is genuine. Jeremy Shada was 12 years old when he began voicing Finn, and his voice changed over the course of the series. This was not hidden from the audience. It was embraced. Finn's voice deepens as the show progresses, and the character ages with his actor. This is almost unheard of in animation. Most shows recast roles when a child actor's voice changes, or they ask the actor to maintain the higher pitch artificially. Adventure Time let Finn grow up. The boy whose voice cracked in Season 3 is the young man whose voice is steady and deep by Season 10. And the audience, many of whom were growing up alongside Finn, heard their own changes reflected back to them. The show aged with its viewers in a way that was never announced or marketed. It simply happened naturally the way growing up does. Tom Kenny, who voices the Ice King, brought a hidden layer to the character that most viewers do not know about. Kenny is best known as the voice of SpongeBob SquarePants, one of the most recognizably cheerful characters in animation history. His casting as the Ice King was deliberate. The creators wanted a voice actor who could make you laugh and break your heart in the same breath. And Kenny's ability to shift from manic comedy to quiet devastation is what makes the Ice King work as a character. There are moments, scattered throughout the series, where the Ice King's dialogue drops its usual frantic energy and becomes something soft and lost. Those moments are Kenny channeling the sadness underneath the madness, and they are the reason the Ice King's story resonates so deeply despite the character spending most of his screen time as comic relief. Hynden Walch, who voices Princess Bubblegum, has spoken in interviews about a hidden decision she made early in the series that shaped the character's evolution. In the first season, Bubblegum's voice is warm and approachable, with a slight sweetness that matches her candy nature. But as the show revealed more about Bubblegum's controlling tendencies and moral complexity, Walch gradually shifted her performance. The voice becomes cooler, more precise, more clipped. By the later seasons, Bubblegum sounds like a different person than she did in the beginning, and the change is so gradual that most viewers do not notice it happening. Walch was tracking Bubblegum's character arc in her vocal performance, adding weight and distance to the voice as the character became more guarded. It is a masterclass in voice acting that exists entirely below the threshold of conscious awareness. The music of Adventure Time is another hidden dimension of the show that deserves sustained attention. Rebecca Sugar, who would later create Steven Universe, was a writer and storyboard artist on Adventure Time for its early seasons, and she wrote many of the show's most iconic songs. Marceline's Fry song from the episode It Came from the Nightosphere, Season 2, Episode 1, was written by Sugar, and it is a song about a daughter confronting her father about eating her fries. On the surface, it is silly. Underneath, it is about a parent who takes without asking, who consumes what belongs to his child without considering her feelings. The fries are not fries. They are trust and boundaries and the small things that matter to a child that a careless parent destroys without realizing it. Sugar has said that the song came from a personal place, and the specificity of the emotion is what makes it work. You do not need to know that it is autobiographical to feel it. You just need to listen. The song I Remember You, from the episode of the same name, Season 4, Episode 25, is widely considered one of the most emotionally powerful moments in the entire series. It is a duet between Marceline and the Ice King, and it is the moment where the show makes explicit what it had been hinting at for seasons. Marceline remembers Simon. The Ice King does not remember her. They sit together in his cave, writing a song, and the song becomes a vehicle for Marceline's grief. She is singing to a man who no longer knows who she is, telling him things he cannot understand. And the Ice King, oblivious to the weight of the moment, is just happy to have someone to play music with. The hidden fact about this song is that Rebecca Sugar wrote it in one sitting, late at night, and she was crying by the time she finished. The emotion in the recording is not manufactured. It is the sound of a songwriter who found something true and could not look away from it. Sugar's departure from Adventure Time to create Steven Universe left a visible mark on the show's musical identity. The songs in later seasons are still emotionally resonant, but they have a different quality. Jesse Moynihan, who wrote several later season episodes, brought a more experimental and cosmic sensibility to the show's music. The Ice King's songs become more fragmented and desperate. Marceline's songs become more reflective. And BMO's songs, which are scattered throughout the series like small gifts, maintain a childlike simplicity that becomes increasingly poignant as the world around BMO grows darker. The musical evolution of the show mirrors its narrative evolution, and if you listen carefully, you can hear the moment where one era ends and another begins. The background art of Adventure Time is another hiding place for facts that casual viewing will never reveal. The show's backgrounds were painted in a style that deliberately evokes children's book illustration, with soft colors and organic shapes that make the Land of Ooo feel like a place you might find in a dream. But embedded in those dreamlike landscapes are artifacts of the world that came before. Street signs written in English, half buried in the ground. The remains of a parking garage, its concrete levels visible beneath a layer of grass and flowers, A microwave oven sitting on a rock shelf in a cave, its digital display still faintly visible. These details are not accidental. The background artists were given specific instructions to include remnants of human civilization in every outdoor scene. The idea was that the destruction of the old world should be visible everywhere, even in the most beautiful settings, because Ooo is not a fantasy world. It is our world, 1,000 years after we destroyed it. And the candy-colored surface is not a disguise. It is what grew back. There is a specific background in the episode The Vault, Season 5, Episode 34, that contains one of the most haunting hidden details in the series. The episode flashes back to the early days of the Candy Kingdom, when Bubblegum was still building her civilization. In the background of one scene, you can see the ruins of a human city. The buildings are recognizably modern, with glass windows and steel frames, but they are crumbling and overgrown. And if you look closely, in one of the windows, there is a shape that resembles a human figure. It could be a mannequin, it could be a trick of the light, or it could be the remains of a person preserved in the window of a building that has been standing for 1,000 years. The show never draws your attention to it. It is just there in the corner of the frame, part of the landscape of a world that was built on bones. The mathematical precision of Adventure Time's timeline is another hidden fact that reveals the depth of the show's planning. The series takes place exactly 1,000 years after the Mushroom War, but the events within the series span approximately 4 years. Finn is 12 when the show begins, and 16 when it ends. This timeline is consistent across all 10 seasons, with seasonal changes visible in the backgrounds and character development tracking to a plausible growth arc. The show's timeline also accounts for the aging of its supporting cast. Bubblegum, who is approximately 800 years old, does not visibly age. The Ice King, who is over 1,000, does not age, but Finn, Jake, and the mortal characters grow older at a rate that matches real time. The show ran for 8 years. Finn aged 4. The ratio is consistent, and it suggests that the creators mapped out the entire character timeline before the show began, adjusting it as production realities shifted, but never losing sight of the underlying structure. The role of Dungeons & Dragons in Adventure Time's creation goes deeper than most people realize. Pendleton Ward did not just draw inspiration from the game, he used its mechanics as a writing tool. During the development of early episodes, Ward and his writers would role-play scenes as the characters, using dice rolls and character sheets to determine how encounters would unfold. If Jake needed to talk his way out of a confrontation, the writers would roll a charisma check. If Finn needed to fight a monster, they would roll for combat. The randomness of the dice introduced unpredictability into the writing process, which is why so many Adventure Time episodes take unexpected turns. The story did not go where the writers planned. It went where the dice sent it. This method was eventually abandoned as the show matured and its stories became more serialized, but the spirit of it, the willingness to let chance shape narrative, never fully left. Adventure Time always feels like it could go anywhere because in its early days, it literally could. The Monster Manual, the Dungeons & Dragons bestiary that Ward has cited as a primary visual inspiration, left its mark on the creature design of the entire series. Ooo is populated with beings that resemble the surreal illustrations of early 500 and 500 sourcebooks. Creatures that are part animal, part geometric shape, part nightmare. The party god, a floating wolf head that appears at parties, is a direct descendant of this aesthetic. The Y-Wolves, intelligent wolves who only ask questions, are another. The show's creature designers were encouraged to make things weird before making them coherent, to design beings that felt like they could exist in a dungeon master's fever dream. The result is a bestiary that is unlike anything else in animation, a world where every background creature has the specificity and strangeness of something that was rolled on a random encounter table. The episode Dungeon Train Season 5 Episode 36 is the show's most direct homage to its 500 and 500 roots, and it contains a hidden commentary on the nature of gameplaying itself. In the episode, Finn discovers a train filled with monsters that he can fight endlessly for loot and experience. Each car contains a new enemy. Each victory yields a new weapon. Finn becomes addicted to the cycle, fighting and looting and moving forward. Unable to stop, Jake tries to get him to leave, but Finn cannot. The train is too satisfying. The progression is too rewarding. The episode is, on one level, a parody of role-playing game mechanics, but on a deeper level, it is a story about compulsive behavior, about the way repetitive reward systems can trap you in a loop that feels like progress but goes nowhere. Finn is not growing on the train. He is not learning. He is just fighting, and the fighting has become its own purpose. The episode ends when Finn finally chooses to leave, but the train continues without him, looping endlessly through a landscape that never changes. The show's approach to mortality is one of its most carefully handled hidden themes. Adventure Time does not shy away from death. but it treats it with the specificity that is unusual for a children's show. When characters die, they go somewhere. The dead world exists. The afterlife is a place with rules and geography. This means that death in Adventure Time is not an abstraction, it is a transition, and the show respects its weight. When Finn's alternate self dies in Pillow World, the show gives him an entire lifetime before he goes. When the Lich kills Prismo, the show treats it as a genuine loss, not a plot device to be undone. And when Jake dies, off-screen between the end of the series and the Distant Land special together again, the show does not show you the moment. It shows you what comes after. Jake is in the dead world. Finn goes to find him. And the reunion is not joyful, exactly. It is something more complicated. It is two people who have been apart and are together again, knowing that the distance between them was real, and the reunion does not erase it. The hidden fact at the center of Adventure Time is that it is a show about grief, not the dramatic cinematic kind. The quiet kind, the kind that lives in objects, the kind that makes you keep a shirt because it smells like someone you miss, the kind that makes you sing a song from a show that ended 30 years ago because it is the only thing keeping you sane. The kind that follows you across lifetimes, lodged in a vault you built to protect yourself from the weight of remembering. Every fact hidden in the backgrounds of this show is a small act of remembrance. The animators who placed a rusted car in the grass were remembering a world that never existed. The writers who gave Marceline 1,000 Years of Loneliness were remembering what it feels like to miss someone who is standing right next to you. The voice actors who laughed together in the recording booth were making something that would outlast the moment it was made. And you, listening to this right now, are part of that chain of remembering. You are hearing the details that someone put there for you to find. Not all of them. Not even most of them. But enough to know that the show cared more than it had to. Enough to know that there is always more to find if you are willing to look. The snail is waving. The Cheers theme is playing. The Crown is singing its 65-million-year-old lullaby. And somewhere in the ruins of the world that came before, a boy and his dog are sleeping in a tree that grew from the grave of a woman they will never meet. That is the hidden truth of Adventure Time. It is not hidden because it is a secret. It is hidden because it is too much to see all at once. So the show gives it to you slowly, over 10 seasons and 1,000 nights, piece by piece, fact by fact, detail by detail, until you realize that you have been carrying it with you the whole time. Number Adventure Time, number Hidden Facts number, fall asleep to. Actually, wait. Do not fall asleep yet, because there is one more layer beneath the one we just uncovered, and it might be the most important one of all. The hidden facts of Adventure Time are not just trivia. They are a philosophy. They are a way of building a world that respects its audience enough to hide the best parts, trusting that someone, someday, will come back and find them. The Land of Ooo, as a geographic entity, holds secrets that most fans have never fully mapped. The continent is not simply a random fantasy landscape. When you overlay the map of Ooo against a distorted map of the Western Hemisphere, certain correspondences emerge. The Ice Kingdom occupies a region that could correspond to the northern reaches of the former United States or Canada, frozen by the lingering magic of the Crown. The Fire Kingdom sits in a region of volcanic activity. The Candy Kingdom is built in a temperate zone that could sustain the kind of organic candy growth that Bubblegum's domain requires. The show's creators have never confirmed this geographic correspondence, but the hints are there in the coastlines, in the placement of mountains, and in the way water flows through the land. Ooo is not a different world. It is this world, reshaped by catastrophe and 1,000 years of magical evolution. The ocean surrounding Ooo holds its own hidden stories. In the miniseries Islands, which spans episodes in Season 8, we learn that the human survivors of the Mushroom War fled across the ocean to a chain of islands where they established new civilizations. These island communities developed independently of Ooo, building their own technology, their own governance, and their own culture. One island became a surveillance state, another became a community of healers, another was overtaken by a virtual reality system that trapped its inhabitants in a digital paradise. Finn's mother, Minerva, became the guardian of the healer island, eventually uploading her consciousness into a digital network to save her people from a deadly virus. The Islands miniseries reveals that the broader world of Adventure Time is not limited to Ooo. There are other continents, other survivors, other civilizations that arose from the ashes of the Mushroom War, each one reflecting a different response to the same catastrophe. Some chose isolation, some chose escape, and the fact that these communities exist scattered across an irradiated ocean means that the Land of Ooo is not the whole story. It is one chapter of a much larger history that the show only partially tells. The underwater civilizations of Adventure Time are another hidden thread that is easy to miss. Beneath the oceans of Ooo, there are entire kingdoms that the surface dwellers know little about. The episode Buttopia, Season 3, Episode 10, reveals that one such underwater community was built in the ruins of a human shopping mall. The inhabitants, called humans, are mutated descendants of the humans who survived the Mushroom War by hiding underground or underwater. Their culture is built from fragments of pre-war civilization, reinterpreted through 1,000 years of isolation. They use escalators as ceremonial structures. They worship fluorescent lighting. The show presents these details with a mix of humor and melancholy, because the humans are us, or what is left of us, trying to remember a world we lost. Their rituals are absurd because the context has been erased, and all that remains is the form without the meaning. The Glass Kingdom, introduced in the Distant Lands Special Obsidian, is another hidden civilization that expands the world of Adventure Time beyond Ooo. The Glass Kingdom is located inside a massive crater, and its inhabitants are made of glass. They are fragile, literally and metaphorically, and their kingdom's defenses are maintained by a dragon trapped inside the crater wall. The dragon was sealed there by Marceline's song, and the kingdom's safety depends on the emotional state of that song. When Marceline's unresolved feelings about bubblegum cause her to write an angry, heartbroken version of the song, the dragon stirs. The glass begins to crack. The kingdom's structural integrity is literally tied to Marceline's emotional health. This is Adventure Time at its most metaphorical. A kingdom of glass people, held together by a song, threatened by the unresolved pain of a relationship that ended badly. The hidden fact is that the Glass Kingdom is a mirror. It shows you what happens when you build your life around something beautiful but fragile and then refuse to deal with the cracks. Peppermint Butler is one of the show's most deceptively complex side characters, and his hidden lore reveals a darkness that his cheerful appearance belies. Peppermint Butler is Princess Bubblegum's loyal servant, a small candy person who manages the day-to-day operations of the Candy Kingdom. But throughout the series, hints accumulate that Peppermint Butler has a secret life. He practices dark magic. He has connections to Death himself and refers to Death as a personal friend. He can summon demons. He knows rituals that should be far beyond the knowledge of a candy butler. In the episode The Suitor, Season 5, Episode 21, Peppermint Butler is shown to have detailed knowledge of necromancy. In Nemesis, Season 6, Episode 15, he faces off against a demon hunter named Peacemaster, who considers Peppermint Butler a genuine threat to the safety of Ooo. The show never fully explains how a candy person acquired this knowledge, or why. It leaves Peppermint Butler as a mystery, a servant who is far more than he appears, hiding unspeakable knowledge behind a polite smile and a tray of refreshments. In the finale, when GOLB's influence transforms the citizens of the Candy Kingdom, Peppermint Butler is reduced to a baby. He loses all his memories, all his dark knowledge, all his accumulated power. He becomes a blank slate, a candy infant who knows nothing of the darkness he once commanded. Some fans have interpreted this as a punishment. Others see it as a mercy. The show, characteristically, does not tell you which. It simply shows you a character who was defined by his hidden depths being returned to a state of innocence and asks you to decide whether that is a tragedy or a liberation. The Cosmic Owl is another entity whose hidden role in Adventure Time's mythology is larger than most viewers realize. The Cosmic Owl appears in prophetic dreams, and his presence in a dream confirms that the dream is a premonition, not a fantasy. This is established early in the series and maintained consistently. When characters dream and the Cosmic Owl appears, the events of that dream will happen. This creates a hidden determinism in Adventure Time's universe. Prophecy is real. The future can be seen. And the question the show raises, without ever directly addressing, is whether knowing the future changes it. When Finn dreams of the Lich returning and sees the Cosmic Owl in the dream, does that make the Lich's return inevitable? Or does the dream give Finn the chance to prepare? The show's answer seems to be that prophecy in Ooo is descriptive, not prescriptive. It tells you what will happen, but it does not tell you how to respond. The future is fixed. Your reaction to it is not. The origin of the Cosmic Owl itself is one of the show's most charming hidden facts. The character design was inspired by a mundane observation in the Cartoon Network offices. A staff member was using the restroom and noticed that the reflection of the urinal handles on the wall looked like an owl. The observation was brought back to the art department, where it was developed into the Cosmic Owl's distinctive design, the wide-set eyes and curved horns echoing those bathroom fixtures. One of the most important prophetic entities in the Adventure Time universe was born from a trip to the bathroom. The show has never been precious about its creative process, and this fact is a perfect example. Great art can come from anywhere, even from a reflection in a restroom. The secret screen song is another hidden detail that only the most dedicated fans have discovered. At the end of certain episodes, if you wait through the credits and watch the final frame, there is a brief animation accompanied by a tiny musical phrase. These end-of-episode secrets are different each time and often contain cryptic images or sounds that relate to upcoming episodes or hidden lore. Most viewers miss them entirely because they stop watching when the credits roll. But for those who wait, the show offers one last gift, a tiny piece of the puzzle that can only be found by being patient. The role of music theory in Adventure Time extends beyond individual songs to the show's entire sonic identity. The background score, composed primarily by Casey James Basichis and Tim Kiefer, uses a deliberately limited palette of instruments. Ukulele, acoustic guitar, xylophone, and simple synthesizer patches dominate the soundtrack. These instruments were chosen because they evoke a sense of smallness and intimacy. The music sounds like it is being played in the same room as you, not in a concert hall. This acoustic intimacy is one of the reasons Adventure Time works so well as sleep content. The music does not fill the room, it occupies a small corner of it, quietly, like a friend playing guitar in the next room while you drift off. The composers have spoken about deliberately avoiding dramatic orchestral swells in favor of smaller, more personal musical moments. The biggest emotional beats in the series are accompanied by the smallest sounds, because the show understands that quiet hits harder than loud when the subject matter is real. The number theory hidden in Adventure Time's episode structure is something that almost no one discusses. The show's seasons vary in length, but the total episode count, 283, corresponds to no obvious numerological pattern. What is hidden, however, is the way the show structures its emotional arcs within seasons. Major revelations tend to cluster around specific episode positions. Season premieres introduce new threats or settings. Mid-season episodes, typically around episodes 12 through 14, contain the deepest character work. Season finales provide resolution or escalation. This structure is not unique to Adventure Time, but the consistency with which the show hits these beats across 10 seasons suggests a level of planning that goes beyond episode-by-episode writing. The show's creators mapped emotional arcs across entire seasons, planting seeds in early episodes that would not bloom for months, trusting that the audience would still be there when the payoff arrived. The show's relationship with its fandom is itself a hidden story worth telling. Adventure Time was one of the first animated series to develop a significant adult fandom through Tumblr and Reddit in the early 2010s. The show's creators were aware of this audience and responded to it in subtle ways. Easter eggs became more complex in later seasons. Emotional storylines became more nuanced. The bubblegum-Marceline relationship, which began as a subtext that the adult fandom recognized and championed, eventually became text, in part because the creators saw that their audience was ready for it, and in part because the cultural landscape shifted to make it possible. The hidden fact is that Adventure Time's audience helped shape the show, not through direct influence, but through the simple act of paying attention. The creators saw that people were looking closely, and they responded by hiding more, by layering more, by building a show that rewarded the kind of obsessive scrutiny that only a deeply engaged fandom provides. There is a beautiful paradox in that relationship. The more carefully the audience looked, the more the creators hid. And the more the creators hid, the more carefully the audience looked. It was a feedback loop of attention and care, a collaboration between the people who made the show and the people who watched it, conducted entirely through the medium of hidden details. No one announced it, no one planned it. It simply happened organically, the way the best creative relationships do. And this brings us to something that lives beneath all the other hidden facts: the show's relationship with its own ending. Adventure Time knew it was ending for over a year before the finale aired. Cartoon Network announced the show's cancellation in September 2016, and the final episode did not broadcast until September 3rd, 2018. That gap gave the writers something unusual in television: time to plan the goodbye. And they used every second of it. The final seasons are dense with callbacks, with quiet resolutions to storylines that had been simmering for years, with the kind of narrative housekeeping that only happens when a creative team knows exactly how many episodes they have left. The result is a final season that functions as a love letter to the show's own history. Characters who had not appeared in years return for brief moments. Locations that were visited once in Season 2 reappear with new significance. And the threads that the show had been weaving since its earliest episodes are finally pulled tight. Gumball's return resolves a betrayal that happened 800 years ago. Betty's transformation resolves a love story that began 1,000 years before that. And the final image of the series, a montage set to the song Come Along With Me, shows the future of Ooo 1,000 years after the events of the finale, with new characters living in a world that was shaped by everything that came before. The 1,000-year time jumps are the show's structural signature. The Mushroom War happened 1,000 years before the series. The finale flash-forward shows a world 1,000 years after. The implication is that Wu operates on a cycle of millennial change. Every 1,000 years, the world remakes itself. New civilizations rise from the ruins of the old. New heroes emerge to face new threats, and the hidden details of each era are buried in the landscape, waiting to be found by whoever comes next. Finn found Simon's videotapes. The future characters will find the remnants of Finn's world. The cycle of discovery is the cycle of the show itself, repeating endlessly. The show's treatment of legacy extends to its influence on the medium. Adventure Time did not just tell a story, it changed the way animated stories are told. Steven Universe, created by Rebecca Sugar, who worked on Adventure Time as a storyboard artist and songwriter, carries the DNA of its parent show in its emotional depth, its queer representation, and its willingness to take children's emotions seriously. Over the Garden Wall, created by Patrick McHale, who was a creative director on Adventure Time, shares its predecessor's love of atmospheric storytelling and hidden mythology. Gravity Falls, while created independently by Alex Hirsch, exists in a landscape that Adventure Time helped make possible, a landscape where animated shows could be narratively complex, emotionally mature, and cosmologically ambitious without losing their sense of fun. The hidden fact is that Adventure Time's influence is visible in virtually every critically acclaimed animated series that followed it. The show did not just build a world, it built a genre. The Fiona and Cake spin-off series, which premiered on August 31, 2023, extends the show's legacy into new territory. The series takes the gender-swapped characters that were originally created by character designer Natasha Allegri as personal fan art and builds an entire narrative around them. The revelation that the Fiona and Cake universe was created by Prismo as an unauthorized personal project adds a metafictional layer to the show's mythology. Prismo, a cosmic entity who builds worlds for others, wanted a world of his own. He wanted to create something that was not a wish fulfillment for someone else, but an expression of his own desires. And the world he built was a variation on his friend's reality, a tribute disguised as a creation. The hidden fact is that Prismo did what every artist does. He took something he loved and made his own version of it. The Fiona and Cake universe is fanfiction, created by a god. The second season of Fiona and Cake, which premiered on October 23, 2025, pushed the show's lore even further. The multiverse, which had been a background concept in the original series, became the central narrative engine. Realities merge, characters from different timelines interact. The boundaries between what is canon and what is alternate become deliberately blurred. And at the center of it all is the same question that Adventure Time has been asking since its first episode. What makes a person real? Is Fiona less real than Finn because she was created by a cosmic entity? Is Fiona less real than Simon because Finn's soul arrived on a comet? Is Simon less real than Gunther because the crown turned him into someone else? The show does not answer these questions. It layers them one on top of another until the very concept of authenticity dissolves and all that is left is the fact of existence itself. The Emmy Award that Adventure Time Fiona and Cake received at the 76th Emmy Awards in 2024 for Outstanding Individual Achievement in Animation, specifically for Alex Small-Butera's work on the episode The Winter King, is a hidden milestone worth noting. The original Adventure Time was nominated for Emmy Awards multiple times, but won in different categories. The spin-off earning recognition for its animation is a testament to the visual ambition that has always been a hallmark of the franchise. The Winter King episode is particularly significant because it deals directly with an alternate version of Simon Petrikov, a Simon who chose a different path, one that preserved his mind but cost him something equally precious. The episode asks whether a version of yourself that made different choices is still you, and it does so through animation that is among the most visually sophisticated in the franchise's history. The comic book adaptations of Adventure Time, published by Boom Studios starting in 2012, contain hidden lore that never made it into the show. The comics were written by multiple authors, including Ryan North of Dinosaur Comics fame, and while they are not considered strictly canon, they explore corners of Ooo that the show never had time to visit. There are stories about alternate timelines where the Mushroom War never happened, stories about the origins of minor characters who appeared in the show for only a few seconds, stories about what happens in the Candy Kingdom when Bubblegum is asleep and the Candy People are left to their own devices. The comics extended the world in ways that the show's 11-minute format could not accommodate, and for fans who sought them out, they provided hundreds of additional pages of hidden lore. The fact that the comics exist at all is a testament to the depth of the world the show built. Most animated series generate tie-in comics as marketing. Adventure Time generated tie-in comics because the world was too large for one medium to contain. The video games based on Adventure Time carry their own hidden details. The game Explore the Dungeon Because I Don't Know, released in 2013, was written by Pendleton Ward himself and contains canonical lore about the Candy Kingdom's dungeon, a massive underground complex beneath Bubblegum's castle that is home to some of the most dangerous creatures in Ooo. The game reveals that Bubblegum has been imprisoning beings in this dungeon for centuries, a detail that aligns with her controlling nature, but that the show itself only hints at. The game Hey Ice King, Why'd You Steal Our Garbage, released in 2012, also written by Ward, contains dialogue and character interactions that expand on relationships only briefly touched on in the show. These games are frequently overlooked in discussions of Adventure Time's lore, but they represent hours of additional world building that the show's creator considered canonical enough to write himself. The show's influence on the broader culture of internet creativity is another hidden legacy. Adventure Time was one of the first animated series to be heavily remixed by fans in the age of Tumblr and YouTube. Fan animations, fan music, fan theories, and fan art created an ecosystem of secondary creation that extended the show's reach far beyond its broadcast audience. The creators were not just aware of this ecosystem, they participated in it. Natasha Allegri's Fiona and Cake designs originated as personal fan art that she posted online. The positive reception from the fan community led the show's producers to incorporate those designs into official episodes. The line between creator and audience blurred in ways that had not happened before in mainstream American animation. The hidden fact is that some of the most beloved elements of Adventure Time were not conceived in a writer's room. They were conceived in the same creative spaces where the fans spent their time, and the show was generous enough to welcome them in. The show's final hidden fact might be the simplest and the most overlooked. Adventure Time premiered on April 5, 2010, and its title card features Finn and Jake running through a landscape that contains in its very first frame the ruins of human civilization. Cars, buildings, the artifacts of a world that ended. The show told you what it was about in the first second of the first episode. It was about living joyfully in the aftermath of catastrophe. It was about finding adventure in a world that had every reason to be hopeless. It was about a boy and his dog who chose to see the beauty in the ruins. And every hidden fact, every buried detail, every piece of lore tucked into a background painting or a throwaway line of dialogue is an extension of that first frame. The world is broken. Look closer. There is something wonderful growing in the cracks. There is a hidden thread connecting the very first episode of Adventure Time to the very last that almost no one has articulated in full. In the pilot, which aired as a short in 2008, Finn and Jake discover the Ice King kidnapping a princess. They fight him, they win. The princess is saved. It is simple, it is clean. Good versus evil. Hero versus villain. But by the time the finale airs in 2018, the Ice King is no longer a villain. He is a victim. The princess he was kidnapping was not in danger. She was participating reluctantly in the compulsions of a man who could not help himself. And Finn, the boy who charged in to save the day, has learned that saving the day is not always about fighting. Sometimes it is about understanding. Sometimes it is about letting go. The distance between the pilot and the finale is the distance between a child's understanding of the world and an adult's, and the show traveled that distance in real time, carrying its audience with it. The hidden facts of Adventure Time are not decorations. They are the show's real architecture. The surface, the bright colors, and the silly voices and the slapstick comedy is the facade. Underneath it, there is a structure built from grief and love and the stubborn insistence that details matter. Every rusted car in the background is a memorial. Every song is a letter to someone who may never hear it. Every cosmic entity is a metaphor for the forces that shape our lives without our knowledge or consent. And every hidden snail is a promise that someone was paying attention, a promise that the work was done with care, a promise that if you come back, there will be something new to find. This brings us back to where we started, to a man singing the Cheers theme in the ruins of civilization, holding a child who will remember him long after he has forgotten himself. Consider that moment now, after everything you have heard tonight. Consider Simon Petrikov, 47 years old, wearing a crown that was forged 65 million years ago by an ice wizard who could not love the one creature who adored him. Consider that the crown turned Simon into an echo of that wizard, filtered through the desperate wish of a dinosaur who wanted nothing more than to be like his master. Consider that Simon sang a song about belonging to a child who would spend the next 1,000 years alone. Consider that the child grew up to be a vampire queen who kept a shirt that smelled like someone she loved. Consider that the show put all of this in the background, in the margins, in the spaces between the jokes, and trusted that someone, someday, would find it all and hold it together in their mind and understand what it meant. That is what you are doing right now. You are holding it together. All the hidden facts, all the buried details, all the threads that span 65 million years and 10 seasons and 283 episodes. You are the person the show was waiting for. The one who came back and looked closely and found the snail waving in the corner of the frame. And now the frame fades, the snail disappears behind the rock. Simon's song echoes in the silence between episodes. And the show finally does what it always does. It trusts you. It trusts that you heard what it was saying. It trusts that the details will stay with you, lodged somewhere in your own vault, waiting for the night you need them. If you enjoyed this video essay, hitting subscribe means the world. Sleep well. I will see you next time.